Today's throwback is going to be slightly different. It'll be a combination of a throwback and a bit of a rant, just so I can hold you guys over until I make a new rant. So anyways, let's begin. Today's throwback will be on Black Sabbath. Now, Sabbath was the true roots of metal today, and even some alternative rock, so they carry plenty of weight in terms of their presence in the rock and roll genre. As far as specifics go, Black Sabbath's original lineup consisted of vocalist Ozzy Osbourne, guitarist Tony Iommi, bassist Geezer Butler, and drummer Bill Ward. The four members started their first band in 1968, and they were known as Earth, after getting rid of two previous members, of course. They were originally heavy blues rock oriented, but they changed their style to an occult attitude, brought upon by Geezer Butler's vision of a man in black pointing to him at the foot of his bed. The band changed their name to Black Sabbath because they were mistaken for another band, surprisingly also named Earth. Black Sabbath released their first eponymous album in 1970, and it was succinctly called Black Sabbath. Their first album was a breakthrough for the band. It was released on Friday the 13th, and it features many trademark songs. Black Sabbath is one of them, as well as NIB, which really stands for Geezer's Beard and not Nativity in Black, or the other acronyms you may have heard of. Other great tracks are Evil Woman and Warning, both cover songs. Evil Woman was not released in the US until later. And Warning is an incredible 10 minutes long, taking into account the extended guitar solos by Tony Iommi, which by my estimation are totally amazing. I really like The Wizard as well, since Ozzy plays harmonica and it fits in with the booming dark guitar of Tony Iommi. The album was Black Sabbath's true beginnings, and it was their foundation for all of their musical arrangement. The tempo shifts and the piercing guitar solos would be all watermarks of Sabbath further in their musical careers. Black Sabbath released another album in 1970 called Paranoid. If Black Sabbath was the true roots of Black Sabbath, then this album would be the most commercial. Almost every classic Sabbath tune is in Paranoid, including War Pigs, Paranoid obviously, and Iron Man, all on the first side. Then you have Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, and Fairies Wear Boots on the second side. It is a wonderful album by any standards. I especially like how Sabbath delved into different musical styles in this album. For example, Planet Caravan is more on the psychedelic side of music than on their heavy metal basis that Sabbath capitalized on throughout their discography. And strangely enough, the song Paranoid was created only for filler purposes, and not for any intention of it becoming a hit. Somehow it became the most commercially viable track on the album. Way to pull an Emerson, Lake and Palmer. It was originally titled War Pigs until someone complained about Sabbath's anti-Vietnam War stance, which is why the cover doesn't reflect the title. Either way, it is a great album and would be one of the classic Sabbath albums that everyone remembers. In 1971, Black Sabbath released their most distinctive album, Master of Reality. In this album, Iommi detuned his guitar so he could play better as the result of his factory accident, which, if you've been paying attention, I mentioned in a previous video. Anyway, Geezer did the same thing with his bass guitar, and that is the sound in Master of Reality. It was one of Sabbath's diverse forays into heavy metal, with great songs such as Sweet Leaf, After Forever, and Children on the Grave in side 1, and on side 2 you have Lord of this World, Into the Void, and the very calming Solitude, which represents Sabbath's diverse repertoire. The album itself is great, and I like the interludes between the songs, such as the short Orchid with its soft acoustic guitar. The album, I think, represents a turning point in Sabbath's musical basis. They begin a transition from being dark to becoming lighter with each consecutive album. Although, to be honest, they don't get that light at all. Black Sabbath released another album in 1972, calling it Specifically Enough, Volume 4. This was the album that had the first set of difficulties recording because all the band was high on cocaine at that point in time. The recording of certain songs was delayed, the band members were beginning to argue, and even Bill Ward was almost fired. Fortunately, the album is another winner, containing many Sabbath classics such as Tomorrow's Dream, the very poignant Changes, and Supernaut, all on one side one. On side 2, there is Snowblind, Cornucopia, The Haunting Laguna Sunrise, and St. Vitus's Dance, all of which are excellent to listen to. The album itself was great, but the band itself was deteriorating. Although they still had the capacity to make excellent songs, the band itself began to crumble under the stress of the drugs and the concert performances between each album. This would be the true landmark transition that would plunge Sabbath into a very slow decay towards implosion. In 1973, Black Sabbath released their fifth and more progressive album, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. In this album, the band becomes more instrumental. Not instrumental in terms of lyrics, but using more instruments aside from the usual lineup of drums, electric guitar, and bass guitar. Most of the songs feature keyboards and synthesizers, and it makes them appear more sophisticated. This is quite atypical for Sabbath since they stressed their musical position in a way that they were dark, moody, loud, and sludgy. In this one, they seem to take a more modern and futuristic format. I don't know too many songs from Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, aside from the title song and A National Acrobat. And I think I may have heard of Spiral Architect from side 2 at one time. It's funny how they have a song called Who Are You, and it's only 1973. Wait a minute. Nah.